Congresswoman Ilhan Omar being accused of making new anti-Semitic remarks. Omar facing Republican backlash, and there's some feuding with members of her own party after she said this.
I want to talk about the political influence in this country that says it is okay for people to push for allegiance to a foreign country.
Woo!
I want to ask, why is it okay for me to talk about the influence of the NRA, of fossil fuel industries, or Big Pharma, and not talk about a powerful lobbying group that is influencing policy?
In response to those remarks, Democrats could vote tomorrow on a resolution to condemn anti-Semitism. The party, however, is split over whether to include Omar's name in the resolution. So, Dana, let's just go to the heart of the matter, because there are people who are saying she's talking about American policy in the Middle East. Why is that anti-Semitic?
Well, it's because there's a code, right? So she also talks about dual loyalty. That's what she's suggesting, is that people who support is the state of Israel, that if they're Jewish, that you actually, your loyalty is not just to the United States, your loyalty is to Israel. And it's been something that has been considered anti-Semitic and goes way back. And so perhaps she didn't know initially that when she said that that was offensive. But the thing is, now she's been told so many times that you have to wonder, like, how do you solve, even like from the musical, how do you solve a problem like Maria? I think that's what the Democrats, like, how do you solve this problem of Congresswoman Omar? Because this is a story that keeps coming back over and over again, to the extent that Mark Mellman, who's a Democratic pollster kind of guy, a consultant, they've started a group, Democrats for Israel, right? Like, to like explain to people why, if you're Jewish and you're a Democrat, you should be supportive. And they have to do like a whole re-education. That's probably the wrong word, but education to people who are younger. Somebody like Congresswoman Omar, who is younger, but this is not, she's not an isolated case, right? This is being taught across universities, and in particular the BDS movement, to try to divest from anything that has to do with Jewish people or Israel. That it's growing, and so I think that there does need to be a decision by the Democrats, and I think they would be smart to go ahead and take it on now, because it's clearly not going to get better.
Well, Jesse, in fact, a lot of people argue that this is not about Jewish people, that the biggest supporters of Israel are evangelical Christians and the Republican Party on the right that have made Israel into sort of a litmus test for themselves. What do you think?
Well, I mean, this is universal condemnation to Omar. I mean, Nancy Pelosi, the Anti-Defamation League, the Jewish Policy Center have all said that what she said is offensive and prejudiced. It's not something that the evangelical right is creating here as a wedge issue. She reminds me of, you know, a freshman in college, like 2 weeks into the semester, first term, she's already on probation. She's already had her parents called. This is not good. I mean, she's barely a freshman, and she's already getting spanked by the leadership. It's humiliating to her, and it's got to be humiliating to the Democratic leadership right now. If you combine her with AOC's Green New Deal, and then she stepped in it with this, you know, felony campaign finance scandal, and then the other Tlaib woman, the MRF impeachment rhetoric that came out of her mouth, these three radical musketeers are causing a big problem for the Democratic Party. Yeah. And I guarantee you there's some picture of her with Farrakhan or someone that's about to drop. If you look at, we talked about this the other day, she wrote that letter of support to ISIS recruits. She's trafficked in anti-Semitic tropes. She's used kind of money language about Jewish people and their influence. She has been educated. The Jewish community in her district in Minnesota had a big summit with her. They called it an anti-Semitic intervention. And they told her, this, you can't say this. This is the history of the Jewish people. And she still doesn't get it.
Well, so, I mean, in fact, the West Virginia GOP put up a poster, linked her to 9/11, totally illegitimate. But again, these are attacks against her. And so, Greg, the question becomes, should she be stripped of her seat on the Foreign Affairs Committee?
I don't think she should have ever gotten this seat to begin with. And you know, I have a hard time with language being overparsed, and because that's that's what we are doing these days on both sides, and I think the left is harder on the right in this case. I mean, they come after and they try to believe what you said means something else. She can say what she wants; she just has to live with it. What bugs me about her is there's this other hypocrisy that she gets away with: the lesbian, gay, bisexual, the LGBTQ. Am I missing one?
No, Q is the end of it.
Q is the end, who kind of are okay with what's not being said. So the most friendly country in the Middle East for gays is Israel, right? Yeah. And that's the country she keeps harping on. And I don't think that's a coincidence, because what are the other countries that, it is definitely linked to her religious background. Yeah. But that somehow skates by. As everybody makes fun of Mike Pence, her religion makes Mike Pence look like Freddie Mercury. So let's I think that's something, that is kind of like not discussed, that probably could be raised. Like, what are her thoughts? I know that she comes out in defense of the community here, but what about her affiliations to those other countries?
So, Jedediah, I think the heart and soul of what she has to say is about the way Israel deals with the Palestinians, about Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli leader, rebuff the U.S. on the idea of a two-state solution, which has been long-term U.S. policy in the Middle East. She wants to talk about this, and everybody immediately says, well, you said this, and it wasn't explicitly anti-Semitic, but it could be viewed that way. And she feels like she's being silenced. You can't speak out about Israel in this country.
She's being anti-Semitic, and the problem is she has a long history of making those comments. You go back to 2012, and she was talking about, Israel has hypnotized the world. Yep. She has repeatedly she has made statements that people have found deeply offensive and anti-Semitic, repeatedly had to apologize. The behavior persists. She knows that this stuff's not going to be received well. She made that comment about it's all about the Benjamins. Look, if she wants to make a comment about Israel, she needs to watch the way she's wording these things. She is deeply, deeply offending a vast majority of Jewish people in this country. And I think she needs to be named.
I don't think it's Jewish people. I think it's those Christian evangelicals and Republicans.
Please.
Juan,
she's
getting condemned by the party leadership.
Yes, and can I just say,
not Republican Party leadership.
No, because she's opening the door to these attacks.
Her name needs to be mentioned in that resolution, because she is not stopping, and that needs to be a deeply embarrassing moment. Democrats need to unify and say enough is enough, because she's doing them no favors either. Other Democrats do not want to be linked to this. Maybe AOC or other extremists can get out there and defend some of this language, but this is just not acceptable, and most Democrats know this isn't acceptable. They're not okay with it, and they're having a really hard time that someone from their party is getting away with repeatedly this type of horrific anti-Semitism.
All right, Joe Biden.